sister, for the marhumin, for the people of the marhumin who are present today. Also remember the shuhada of Pakistan, Iraq, Lebanon, especially Palestine, and all across the world who have died for the just cause. Fatiha. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين أبي مولانا مصطفى محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أما بعد قال الله والقرآن الكريم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم براءة من الله ورسوله إلى الذين عاهدتم من المشركين صدق الله العلي العظيم. Respected brothers, sisters who are listening, and the mu'mineen who are, I'm not sure if listening online or not. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh once again. I am a student myself, hence you do not see me on the member as much. I only accept to speak from Majlis if I'm given the chance to speak openly. Hence my request to Brother Ali Naqvi was, you should get another speaker because if I'm speaking then I'll be a little open about subjects that are causing fitna within the community, issues that are creating chaos within the youth.
That's better.
And hence, I do not accept when asked to speak because it's tough for me to see my own brothers, younger brothers, go through certain things and then not be able to talk about it. So hence, today's topic for me that I've been working on for a while, and I had to change my speech from Urdu to English because I was told by the patron of the house that we do have some English speakers only in the audience. So hence the entire speech will be in English, including the Masala.
MashaAllah.
And with that, I will apologize for any shortcomings or any misused words because I study a lot. My major in the studies, this is my 8th year of studying. My major is esoteric hermeneutics. You can Google it. It's the study of Quran, Hadith, and Riwayat from a very different angle, not from what you're used to. Also looking at the political, social ongoings at the time when the Imams existed, and hence the view is slightly different. With that said, today's topic that I chose after a lot of careful consideration is called Applied Azadari. Anybody who has been in college, universities knows they're applied mathematics, applied physics, and I think I just coined a term called Applied Azadari. What that means is, it's about using Azadari as a tool, as a mechanism through which we engage in a process that not only commemorates but also equips us to navigate the contemporary issues plaguing our society today. While striving to become the Shia, an ideal Shia upheld by the Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt. So they may call upon us that this is our Shia, not that we call ourselves a Shia. That is the subject for today. Another thing I want to say, because as I said, I've been hearing this in the community a lot. In the multiple riwayat and the hadith that I've seen from the Imams, there are 3 people who the Aimma, and especially Imam Hussein alayhi salam, has his direct eye on. That means they're watching you. Just like when you say salam to any of the imams or to the Rasul, they reply back, because initiating a salam is not wajib. But replying back, wa alaikum as-salam, is wajib. So when you say your imam is alive, every day when you wake up in the morning and you say, Assalamu alaikum hujjatullah, Assalamu alaikum Abu Abdullah, it's wajib on them to reply to you. This is a command by Allah. They don't decide that. So always remember to say salams to your mom. So just like that, the eye of the Aimma are on you when you go for ziyarat. There are three people, that's what I've seen. And historically, there are three types of people. When you go for ziyarat, Imam Hussain sends who to welcome you? Just like Imam Hussain sent someone to welcome Hazrat Hur. You're going there as Hur. Hazrat Abbas comes to welcome you. That's the first person. The second person is anyone who sheds a tear for Abu Abdullah. A single tear. Why? Why is that in Riwayat? Because her mother is actively on the floor at this time. That's why the son is keeping an eye on you. Who is my mother next to, collecting the tear? That's why they say, the Riwayat say, even if you cannot cry, make a sad face. And if you cannot even do that, just look down. That's enough. Right? And the third person is whoever plans or holds an actual majlis in their house for Imam Hussain. So don't ever think there are not enough people. I don't have the means to do tabarruk. Is my house big enough or not? Who are you welcoming at the end of the day? It's not the people. You're welcoming the mother of Hussain, the Lady of Heaven. That's who you're welcoming. That's who you're welcoming, right? And in the words of the late Allama Talib Jawhari Sahib, I call him a Ruhani Ustad, this is Farsh-e-Azhar. The floor, what is Farsh-e-Azhar? Just for the kids. The floor, carpet, plot, anything you want to call it. I'll say it is the plane of Azadari, right? The plane of Azhar. Anything that you put down, this farsh, I'll call it farsh. This farsh is not for oppressors. It's not for politics. It's not for anyone to do backbiting. This farsh is for deen, for love, for the sacrifice of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad only. That's what this farsh is for. Because for everything else, because Islam is balanced, right? Allah is adil. For everything else, even for politics, you have namaz al-Jumu'ah. Where you're asked to discuss the community affairs in namaz al-Jumu'ah. And that happens every Friday. Every week you get a chance to do that. We get less than 40 days to do this. 2 months, 8 days. We have extended it, but in reality we have only 40 days. So every Jummah you can discuss politics, do everything else in namaz al-Jummah. This farsh, once it's set, there's so many intricacies that we look for. You don't allow children to run everywhere. There's so many things that you would normally do on this floor, but once you put this down for a majlis, you're very careful with it. Everybody who's grown up in households where a majlis happens, or you've gone to houses early, you will realize you're very careful around this farsh. Why is that? Right? Because it doesn't matter who organizes the majlis, whose house is being held on, who is doing the tabarruk, who is paying, the Maulana doing, whatever it is. Once you set this floor down, the true owner of the majlis and the Farsh-e-Azhar has arrived. And that's Bibi Fatima Zahra Sallallahu. And it's my iman, I'm not going to pin it on anyone, that she's here today. And my iman also says that Imam Sajjad alayhi salam is sitting somewhere there. Because he is one of the main people. We do say Bibi Sayyid also was part of this. But he used to go to people's houses. He used to hire people and tell them, speak about the tragedy that happened, that befell my household. and I'll sit and listen. We find stories, I wouldn't say stories, facts in books where he's the only person sitting and listening to the speaker. He would go out in the market and do Azadari. But never did politics on the first show. So this is not the place for it. This is not the place for it. Be careful with that, right? Why do we always say when we go to an Azad Khana or Farsh Azad, when you're crying, your prayers are answered? Right? Why? Because the baby is present. She is listening to you. Right? And I'll give you something, it's not even part of my speech, I just remembered it. And every single time I talk about this or read about this, I start getting goosebumps. There's a promise the baby has made. She will not enter heaven until every azadar or every eye that has shed a single tear for Imam Hussain alayhi salam gets into heaven. So don't walk away from this opportunity. You're walking away from the Lady of Heaven. Have your disagreements, but there's a way, there's a place to do that. Hold the people accountable. Nobody's saying not to do that. Hold the organizers accountable, but there's a place and a way to do it. You don't take your grudges out against Azadari and the Farsh Azad. But all of that can be done in an educated way.
That's right. MashaAllah. Yeah.
Right? Because when we come here, what do? We hold the alam, we touch the alam, we touch the zaris, and do what? Ask for our hajat. Through what? A wasila. Now if I ask you, what is a wasila? And that's this is something that our brothers in faith question us on. Why don't you ask directly from Allah? Why are you doing this wasila? Right? Why exactly are we doing that? So, why do you seek intermediaries or intercessions from others except God? Is that a question that our youth are usually asked? With the advent and the emergence of social media like TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, knowledge is everywhere. So we are turning a blind eye towards our youth if you're thinking they're not going on these different social media sites or applications and getting their info. They are, and they're actively engaged with the other side because they have their people asking questions. Why do you do matam? Why do you do azadari? Why do you do this? Why do you do X? Why do you do Y? And we are often in the defensive mode. Oh, we do this because X happened. No. When you have the education, proper education, you Uno reverse the card on them. Let me put it in the youth book. And by Uno reverse, anybody who spells Uno means, okay, why don't you answer this? But that only happens when you have the education. Why? Because Jahalat is the cornerstone of getting away from religion. There was a reason why it was called what? The era of Jahiliyyah. What, they were not educated? They were some of the best poets ever. Go read pre-Islamic Arabia. Best tradesmen ever. How do you think Bibi Khadija, the family that she came from? Best businessmen ever. But yet, it was called the era of Jahiliyyah. Because they lacked basic education on religion and what it is to have Iman. And they fared so far away that they started worshipping idols. That's the reason it was called the era of Jahiliyyah. Now I want to take a little detour here, and I wrote something down. I want to go back to the ayah that I recited in the start. It was the first verse from Surah Tawbah. And what does it say, right? And I want to talk about this. بَرَعَةٌ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ إِلَى الَّذِينَ آحَدتُّم مِّنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. The first topic, one of the first topics that I want to talk about today is something that plagues the youth today because of misunderstandings, and it also gets to the adults because of misunderstandings. Istabarra. What is tabarra? let me ask you this. Isn't it part of our Fru'ideen? How many Fru'ideen are there? 10? Right? Namaz, fasting, Hajj, Zakat, Khums, Jihad, Amar bil Maruf, Nahi anil Munkar, Tawalla, and then Tabarra. Correct? Tabarra as a principle signifies one thing: disassociation. I disassociate myself from this. Right? So the word says from Surah Tawbah, this is a declaration of disassociation from Allah and His Messenger. For who? The mushrikeen. Because as if you read Surah Tawbah, it'll talk about how they were given 4 months to do whatever they want. Right? But this word of bara'at, disassociation, has been repeated multiple times in the Quran. You can disassociate yourself from anything. Correct? Right? We say, when we do tabarra, that it's the principle for us that we disassociate ourselves from the enemies of the Prophet and his household. Right? And it is part and parcel of the other, which is tawalla. Without tabarra, there is no tawalla. You may ask me how. Your declaration that makes you a Muslim is what?
La ilaha illallah.
Ashhad. La, right? What is la? Nothing, no disassociation with everything except Allah. So in the furu, it's all the way in the end, but in your basic kalma, it's in the start. Right? That is tabarra. And that's how you explain this. If somebody says, you do tabarra. Right? In the same context of tabarra comes lan, which is lana or lanat, as you say. What does it mean? It's basically a general principle, even in the Quran, saying what? To be with, it's a, let me put it another way. It's a prayer, it's a dua that you're making. That, oh Allah, take away your mercy from these people, this person, or this group. That's lana.
बर दुश्मनाने अहले बैत लानत.
In the Islamic text, it is used as a way of disapproval from certain people. That's what it is. Right? Quran uses the lana against who? Shaitan very actively uses it. Right? It's important to understand when Allah is using it, when the prophets are using it, when the Aimma are using it, they are not using it as a direct way of a cuss. There's a big difference between a curse is actually a prayer in the Islamic sense, and a cuss word. Two very big differences. So be wary of that. So if somebody argues, we do not use cuss words, we do use law. And there are reasons for that you can explore. Right? Why is it said to us to not use these cuss words? Simple, we'll take it from the Quran first. Right? Surah Hujurat, verse 11 talks about believers. It addresses the believers and says, do not ridicule others. Do not call them nicknames. Do not call them offensive words. It doesn't say don't do lana, but it's definitely saying don't use the cuss words that we use often. Right? Surah Baqarah, verse 83, what does it say? Speak kindly to others. It doesn't say speak kindly to Muslims. Speak kindly to others. Right? And I can go on in the Quran, but I also want to talk about what the Aimma said. Imam Baqir alayhi salam. And I'll quote this. Talk to people in the best of ways of what you would like them to talk to you. The way you would like them to talk to you. For Allah hates the one who uses cuss words, swearers, and the slanderers. The user of obscene language and the one who does it shamelessly. This is the Imam saying. Right? I can go on and on and on and on, right? But here's the deal. Here's something for the youth and for the adults to understand. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam has said what? Be a source of pride for us and not the source of shame for us. Talk properly with the people. When he uses in Arabic, it says nas. That means everyone, not just the Muslims, right? Do not let your tongue slip, and do not boast or swear. Swearing in this sense literally means using cuss words. That's the Imam saying. So next time anybody does it, you can have a conversation with the Imam, not me. Right? But then, the best of methods of doing lawn is what? We have been given those. What do you do if somebody recites Zarat al-Warisa? I think everybody should, and Zarat al-Ashura every day. It helps you set your life. What does it say in there? What are the lawns? Lana lawmatan qatlatka, lana lawmatan zalamatka, lana lawmatan samid zalika faraziyat be. And then there are lawns on the awwal sani. All of that is there. I don't need to go through. That's the way to do lawn. That's the way to do it. Right? And that's what you call a technical tabarra coming from the Imams themselves. Whereas the person who you're saying this to has to ask the question, what do you mean? What are you doing right now? And then you can bring all the ayats from the Quran, everything, and say, I'm not the one doing this. Allah is. I'm just following orders. That's how it is, right? Now going back to my original point was wasila, right? Because this is a question, what is wasila? How does wasila happen? Right? So as I said, my major in Islamic studies is esoteric hermeneutics. You explore themes from a different angle. So I'm going to do that today. And forgive me for misuse of words because I couldn't come up with better words, right? Allah has a necessity. I can see question marks on people's faces. Of what? Of educating us, of bringing Islam to us, to the humans. We have a necessity of getting that knowledge, getting that iman, getting Islam. It doesn't matter what era, what prophet, but there's a necessity, right? Allah cannot come to us directly because if He does, then He's not Allah. We cannot go to Allah directly because if we do, then we are not humans. We'll have to reach certain status, correct? So you need a medium in the middle. A medium is always required, right? Let me make it even simpler. The way usually school children say, explain me like a 5-year-old. You have a phone charger. There's a massive electricity grid outside that comes to your house and charges the phone. How's that happening? Through a medium. There are transformers in the middle. There's an electricity box at your house, because if I go and connect my phone directly to the grid, what happens? This will explode. I'll probably get electrocuted. But there are mediums in the middle. They're making sure that the amount of electricity comes piecemeal into your phone, enough for the phone to charge according to its capacity. That is what wasila is. The mediums that Allah uses to get this knowledge to us are the prophets and the Aimah, right? So let me say something that will make it a little bit more lighthearted for the Azadars, right? The ones who saw this medium, who was our prophet, called him what? He's just like us, he's human, because they only saw this side. I shouldn't say this, but let me say it. Hence I sometimes don't blame the Nusaris, because they saw that side, they saw the other side of the medium, the total electricity grid, and saw the prophet conversing. And then when the prophet came back and said what? The voice I was conversing with was none other than Ali. So they saw that medium. And they start calling him what? God. The other side is calling the prophet what? He's just like us. And hence the balance in this equation is created by the A'immah. Right? And that's why wasila is powerful. And the way you increase the capacity of gaining that knowledge, the knowledge is already there. If you look at Islam today, the way it's spread, the houses that exist in our brothers of faith are because of whom? Who was their teacher? Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam. Right? Because if you go before that, there were multiple different people who were trying to preach, and every village had its own way of praying. Further away villages had their own way of praying, even pronunciation was different. That's Islamic history. After our Imam, it actually started becoming into something what you call today fiqh. Rulings, how to do certain things in a certain way. Right? We have enough books. We have everything required for us to reach levels that today our alim-e-din reach, which are the mujtahid. But we need to create that capacity in our minds to be able to absorb that information. Because if you do it through wrong channels, either you become atheist because you don't understand how can Imam Ali alayhi salam create the entire universe, or you become an Azadari because you're like, now he's God. So it's important to go through the right channels, study the right subjects, and create the capacity in your mind for it. So, having said that, I'm going to quickly go through multiple questions that our youth get asked in high school, because I hang out with a lot of these youth in our centers, and I get questions from them. And I understand the way they try to answer, because they're defending Azadari, they're defending Farshad, they're defending our Imams, and sometimes they get caught. So the way to reverse this on them is something that I've taken from not just our books, actually nothing from our books, just from the Quran, from Bukhari, from Muslim, Dawud, Tirmidhi, Nasai, and Majah. This is how I'm answering all of this, right? Why do you cry and do matam? Why? Because we are following the sunnah of the Prophet. You're not saying Karbala happened. You're not saying Imam Hussain got martyred. No. We are following the sunnah of the Prophet. How? Let me show you the Quran. Hazrat Yaqub crying over Hazrat Yusuf to a point where his eyes became completely white from grief and he went blind. Following the Prophet, right? Following the prophets. To a point where he was said that if you do not stop your remembrance of Yusuf, you will become fatally ill or become those who perish. I'll ask this question. At what point do a person cry so much that they become fatally ill? Right? Second point. Rasulullah did what? The air of sorrow, the air of grief, the 10th year of the prophethood. Correct? For who? When his most beloved wife, Khadija alayhi salam, passed away, and his uncle, Abu Talib alayhi salam, passed away. Right? Yeah. The Prophet for years cried for who? His uncle, Hazrat Hamza. For years. Right? There was a person, I'm going to deviate. Why though? And I'll give you another thing on this, right? There was a person called Vashi who put the spear in the heart or the chest of Hazrat Hamza alayhi salam, right? He became a Muslim. I don't know how many people know this. Yeah. He came to the Prophet. What did the Prophet say? Every time I see you, I remember my uncle. You are Muslim. I'll take your acceptance, but please, for your lifetime, do not show me your face. This is Rahmatul lil Alameen, by the way. Not Rahmatul lil Muslimin. That's what grief and sorrow does. So we say what? Another point. Sahabi used to cry. Look into these books. Sahabi used to cry looking at who? Looking at the Prophet crying. And the Sahaba used to say, why are you crying for Hamza? He's gone. He's passed away. He's like, no, I cannot forget him. So when we cry, what are we told since we're children? When Muharram comes, when you see the moon of Muharram, act as if somebody has died in your own household. A family member has died, passed away. That's what we are told, right? So that's your answer. Next one. Why do you carry alams? Why do you need these flags? Another simple answer from today's world. Our recent president just passed away, I can't remember his name. Every single flag was on half-mast. You lower the flags. You lower the flags. Every country does this. On the day they remember their founder or somebody who had passed away, flags get lowered. We, on the other hand, since childhood, do what? Raise the flag, saying that ours, even though they passed away, that he was what? A ghazi. Ghazi means what? Somebody who has won. That's what Ghazi Abbas means. The Abbas who won. He conquered the river. He conquered the battlefield. Only got martyred when Imam Hussain said, put your sword down. Don't take your sword. That's what happened. That's why we do it. Because he's important to us. He's important to us. He's our family. So we'll raise the flag and show the world this is what we are doing. Right? Why is your namaz different? I'll give you something again from their own books. Imran bin Hussain, somebody who could hear the angels say salam. This is in their books. Again, everything I'm taking from right now is not from our books, by the way. Okay? Said this, I prayed behind Ali ibn Abi Talib and he said takbir while he was prostrating or doing namaz. And after the rakats and when the prayer finished, I said to a friend, he has prayed the prayer of Muhammad. This is when Imam Ali alayhi salam was the Khalifa, the fourth Khalifa. He was still our first, but for the normal Muslims, other Muslims, he was the fourth. And he was leading the prayer because the Khalifa at that time used to lead the main prayers. This is what they said, right? He has prayed the prayer of Muhammad. He made us remember the actual prayer the way the Prophet used to do it. Their books. Why do you say Ya Ali Madad? Again, I want to say something here because I know there's a struggle in this community and other communities as well. When you just say Ya Ali Madad to a person that you meet, you're signifying what? I'm an Al Khani.
Yes.
Debate me on this all day long. I'm an Ismaili. Because that's the way they used to greet each other. At what point? During the Fatimid era. Because they wanted to disassociate. They wanted to do tabarra on the 12ers. Us. Isnashari. That was their way of greeting at that point. Why? Because we were sending salams in the safety of who? Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And then you used to say salawat. So again, there's nothing wrong in saying Ya Ali Madad when you're doing salam. But do the salam first because that's the way of the Aimma. That's the way of the Aimma. That's the way of the Isnashri. Right? So when we say Ya Ali Madad, let me give you a small story. And really short one. We are following the Sahaba. We are following Hazrat Umar. I'm saying it from the Ummah.
Yeah.
Why? Because there's an event he could not solve. It was a very big biological, technical sort of a judgment that he had to do. And he could not. Who did he call? Said, Ya Ali. Call him. And when after Imam Ali had resolved the situation, what did he say? What exactly did they say? If Ali wouldn't have been present today, Umar have been destroyed. We say the same thing, that if Ali is not present in our lives, in our day-to-days, we will be destroyed too. That's why we say Ya Ali Madad. We are following him. Go complain to him now. Why do we celebrate Ghadir Qum? Why? Okay, fine, Ghadir Qum happened, so what? Why do you celebrate it? Go all out. Again, we are following the Sahaba. Right? Pick any book, and I'll give you names. Tariq-e-Damishq, Tabarani, Razi Tafsir Kasir, Al-Bidayah wa Nihaya. Not our books, by the way. Right? When Rasulullah took Imam Ali on the created member, took his hand up, said what? Man kuntu mawla fahaza aliyun mawla. Right? My first question is this. How do you take the Prophet as your friend? If the Prophet is sitting here, you're going to give him a high five. Or do you take him as your leader? I take him as my leader. I'll give him the utmost respect. I don't do that with something like this with my father or a grandfather or an adult in the household. I'm expecting to do this with the Prophet.
No.
So he is not a friend. He's saying, Man kuntu. Whoever, I am Mawla, I am the leader. Ali is the leader. Why do we celebrate Ghadir Qum the way we do? Because a big Sahabi got up. A Sahabi used to get really angry. He was very happy today. People had not seen him smile, but he was smiling today. He was rejoicing today. And get up and said what? Right? O son of Abu Talib, today you have become my master. My Mawla. And the master of every Muslim. So he was that happy and he was rejoiced. The words say he was rejoiceful, saying, congratulations, congratulations. Right? So I do the same thing. This was Umar, by the way. So may Allah, we can put Razi Allah on this act of his. So when you're asked, why Ghadir Qum? Because he did it. Go question him, not us. Right? Why do you guys cry over what happened after the Prophet for Fadha? Right? From their own books, right? And this is a book called, and this one I have to quote, Mirat al-Faruq, and another book called Khums al-Maghazi, right? Not our books. It says this, do prophets leave inheritance? Fadak is the property of the land of Fay, which was an area back in the day, which became part of the Islamic Caliphate without any fighting. So it was not the booty of war, it was not taken through war, without any fighting. Why? Because it was given to Rasulullah as a gift, not through battle. And who declared that this is not part of battle? Umar declared that the land was reserved for the Holy Prophet and his family. It says in the book, I'm literally quoting what he said, right? This matter is also in a very small detail in Al-Bukhari, Sahih Al-Bukhari. Sahih Bukhari doesn't go in detail. Apparently, you have to go and look for other books where they're doing this from, right? Now, the question begets itself, right? Let's say the Prophet did leave inheritance, Fadak as inheritance, correct? What was happening with the house of the Prophet then? How did the ownership of the house of the Prophet was not inheritance, supposedly? So are you going to tell me now that the Khalifa of that time, who's supposed to be just did some injustice right now? He was not adil? Right? I'll do you guys one better, because a lot of you guys use ChatGPT. Put these arguments in ChatGPT and see the replies you get. In my experience, apparently all the GPTs and AI out there are Shia for some reason. For some reason, I always get the answer that, oh yeah, this does not make sense. But that should be the property of the Prophet, right? So use the technology at hand, right? Another one, the Prophet kept them closed. Why do you have a problem with it? Why do you have a problem? The Prophet kept them closed. They were in the circle. Why do you have a problem? Okay. I'll answer from the Quran. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وإذ قلنا للملائكة اسجدوا للآدم فسجدوا إلى إبليس أبى واستكبر وكان من الكافرين. Right? Last Majlis here in this household, I spoke on this, but not the point I'm going to make right now. When we told the angels bow to Adam, they did what? They bowed except Iblis, who refused. And the other one, I'm going to come now. I'm a very small student. I'm a student with not a lot of knowledge, even in Arabic. I speak broken Arabic. But I know one thing, because when we are doing your Sarf and Nav, which is the grammar of Arabic, you're taught these things. The word kana is always used when you're conversing in was. I was sitting there. I was at my house before. That's the word kana. When you say became, there's a word called asba or sara. It became. He became. They became. Right? Or sara is a word that is used for happened or became. Something. These are the words that are used. But kana, in every little research that I've done, is literally used for was. So when Allah is saying, وَكَانَ مِنَ الْكَافِرِينَ, he was already a kafir. So some translations that you read online, that he became a kafir. No, he was already a kafir. So the question that begets itself again is, when he was already a kafir, what was the reason to put him next to the angels who were pure? Why? Because outwardly he was very religious. Outwardly, to show the species of jinn at that point.
More sajdas than other.
How many sajdas? Everything. But Allah said what? He was already of the kafir. And in order to expose him, I had to put him next to the angels. So that we may give him a command and he will refuse. And then we could show the world that he was already a kafir. So when the Prophet asks for a pen and a paper, and somebody refuses, don't question me and ask me, why were they so close to the Prophet at that point of time? Because then you're rejecting Taha, you're rejecting Yasin. And there are multiple times this has happened. Multiple times Rasulullah said, do not move from your positions. Do not run away. But they're used to running away. That's why they were kept close. To show the world that they would be, what you see is not what Allah sees. That's why they were kept close. Right? Again, and now I'll bring something from our book, Najul Balagha. Read letters 33, 62, and 78. They mention three things that are more than enough. Right? There was, before the era or the Khilafah of Imam Ali alayhi salam, there was enough bloodshed of the innocent, plundering of people's wealth. The people before him were engaged in oppression, and the land was full of corruption. This is the gist of these three letters. Go ahead and read them. Right? Having said that, I know time is of the essence and Ali's looking at me from there. So I'll try to shorten this. Inshallah, we can start some classes or something where we can just talk about these things. Right? The enemy is out there. Your biggest enemy is shaitan. Shaitan is using all of these people, historically, without taking names, to go against you. Right? The biggest enemy of shaitan is who? An educated Azadari. Right? Educated in what? In deen and in dunya. You are among the few who will not astray. Because you have answers. You answer through what? You answer through the Quran. You answer through the Ahlul Bayt. And I'll say one thing here. One thing I always say, I always mention this in religious gatherings. Past year's prophets or the yesteryear's prophets had to show their strength through what? That I am the prophet through what?
Miracles.
Through what?
Miracles.
Through miracles, what you call mu'jiza today. And then with that used to come what? Azab, destruction, however you want to put it. After the Miraj, the Azab stopped on the Ummah because Rahmatul Alameen had arrived. What was the miracle of the Prophet?
Speech.
What was the miracle of the Prophet that he was given? Hazrat Isa was given cure. Hazrat Musa was given the Asa. Rasulullah alayhi salam was given the Quran as the miracle. We're all Muslims, right? Our Prophet had a miracle. That was the Quran as a miracle given to him. Today, because the azab is gone, every single one of us has that miracle available. How many times do you read it in a day? So we cannot say, we're just humans. No. The Rasul made sure of what? Sure, you cannot understand my miracle. I'm leaving another thing with you so that you may get close to the miracle. So today the oppression that's happening, everything happening around the world, you can do wasila, you can use the miracle to defeat the enemy. What were the 280 things that Rasulullah left? The miracle of Quran and the Ahlul Bayt. Unfortunately, we are away from both these days. The Quran in some households are kept so high that we are not allowed to touch it. It collects dust.
Right.
You don't want to read Arabic? That's fine. Read a translation. Start getting used to it. And you will see miracles happen in your life as you live it. Inshallah. Right? So I actually did something. I actually went back in Hadith and I said, what should the youth of today should be like? Right? It literally said, if you want to be a Shia, it's in the terms of the Shia of Imam Ali. Right? He should be like, just like Imam Ali alayhi salam in principles, wise like Imam Ali in decisions, humble like Imam Ali in victories. He must seek knowledge as a shield, not as a way of ridicule, as a shield, combining both faith and modern education. He can lead with intelligence and purpose. He should be courageous in speaking the truth even when it gets unpopular, and merciful in strength. Protect the weak and serve the community. His heart must remain connected to Allah through prayer and through Quran while he reflects upon the daily activities, while his hands work to build a better society. So for the Azadars, the Matmis, the true manhood is not ego, wealth, or dominance over other people. It's integrity, solitude, service, and spiritual strength. We'll make the mood a little bit lighter. Shias aren't the one who need to go to Jannah, by the way. Question mark again. We aren't the ones who need to go to Jannah. We should become the ones like Behlul who give away Jannah. If you have not read the story of Behlul, go read. That's who a Shia should become. That's how powerful you become. Right? Why? I'm going to end in less than 10 minutes. Why? Because every single day, if you don't, please start reciting Zarat Ashura. What do you say? I'm going to read 2 lines from it, right? Wa ashhadu annaka comes line after line after line, right? And then what? There's a line that says, what does that mean? What does ashhadu annaka mean? I bear witness. I bear witness. How are you bearing witness? How? You were not there. How are you bearing witness? How are you testifying? You're giving a testimony, right? How are you testifying if you don't have the knowledge? Second, this is the most important line. I have full confidence in the laws of my religion, bishara'i dini, and in the seals of my deeds. Do you have full confidence in the laws of your religion? Don't promise something to the imam when you're receiving the ziyarah when you're not doing this. It's utmost important. And I'll go back to what? An educated Azadar. I didn't say Muslim, a lot of Muslims. An educated Azadar. Right? Why? Because nobody's, and if you're not educated, what is going to happen? There are enough external and internal enemies from within. They're not going to come and say Azadari is bad. They're not going to come and say do this or do that. What are they going to say? They'll start by bringing complexities into everything. Right? There will be so many complexities in Azadari that you yourself will get tired of listening to it and completely stop doing it. Question Matam, question Majlis, question Noah, question the Matami on everything. Why do you do this? Why do you do that? Why this? Where does it say that? Which Imam did this? Creating complexities. Right? So be careful of that. Right? Imam Hussain went to Karbala for this specific reason, and you have no counter argument. The Imam stayed quiet for this reason. Ali bin Yaqteen did this, even though the Shias hated him, but he was the most close companion to Imam Musa Kazim alayhi salam, right? And you have no answer to it. Become educated. There's enough resources online today. I even go as far as and say this, that every Shia in high school today should at least do 2 years of Muqaddimah online. That's the early study of the Hawza. It teaches you the basics, but it'll set you up for success on your own in the future. Right? I'm skipping a lot over right now, right? Why do you need to do all of this? Right? Why? Because we have a belief that the era of Imam al-Hujjah, is there. That's our belief, that his era is close. And what will his era be like? And this is because the days are very close. What will his era be like? You want to see his era? Go look at Arba'in. Go look at Arba'in. Look how people are treated there. Look how people are serving there. And in Arba'in, the majority are the Shia, but who else is there? There are enough videos online. I have seen atheists go to Karbala online, on videos. And they're like, I don't believe in God, but there's a power here that I cannot describe. I don't understand what has gotten into these people who are serving these people. I've seen the richest of the businessmen clean shoes. This is an atheist writing this. I don't understand this. It cannot be anything but love. I don't believe in God, but I do believe the love that they hold for this person who's buried in Karbala. That's the era of Al-Hujjah, right? Do you see crime there? No. Do you see poverty? No. People are selflessly helping each other and others, regardless of their race, of their creed, of their language. You want to hear one more thing? This is important. The dignity and the societal contributions of women are being acknowledged in Arba'in. Go look at videos and what happens at Hajj to the women and at Umrah to the women when they do Tawaf. That never happens at the Arba'in Walk. Even when you're in the harams, we have separate entrances. Right? So what will this last era usher for us? There are a lot of things that will happen, but one thing will be very clear, and it's starting to happen now. There are bloggers, there are people on Twitter, X, very actively, who are not Shia, who are not Muslim, but are saying what? We are going for Arba'in Walk. We want to see what this whole deal is about. Because there is something in the books that talk about what? The role of Karbala will be magnified at the end of times. I have a book this thick that talks about the end of times. The role of Karbala will be magnified at the end of times, right? It will become a global leader and a global center of learning and remembrance. The crimes done against the household of the Prophet will be exposed, not out of vengeance, by the way, but because of divine justice, like that of Ashura, will be acknowledged, and people who are not Muslims will be honoring the truth, honoring the sacrifices of Hussein and his stand.
Right.
That's written in our books. That's the end of the time, right? And all for who? Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Arba'in is closed. I was asked to recite the Masayib of Imam Hussein. It put me into a spiral. Because when you have a sing other than Imam Hussein, if you have another individual, you can recite their maqtal. It's much easier. But reciting the Masayib of Hussein, where should I start from? Where should I start from? He has seen injustices happen to him since the time of his birth. Crying what you're doing today, the Rasul cried on the day of his birth when Jibreel came down and said, this son of yours will be killed in Karbala without water with his entire household. The day of his birth. What a blessed day, what a happy day for somebody, especially if you are a grandfather. And Rasulullah is crying. And it is mentioned in the narrations that he cries to a point where he starts losing his eyes. He cannot see anymore. That's the level he cried. What Imam Hussein is, if you have to say the word sacrifice and martyrdom or injustice, you remember Hussein. Imam Hussein, I'm going to go before Karbala. Imam Hussein is the one who saw his grandfather being poisoned first. Then immediately after that, he saw the death of his brother. He saw his mother's ribs being broken, the door to the house being set ablaze on fire. He saw his mother bleed. Right after that, a few years have passed, and then he sees his father with a poisoned sword struck upon his head. And for 3 days, the Imam is on bed. He's bedridden. The poison going through his veins, and Hussein is right next to him. He's seeing that. He witnesses that. After that, he sees his own brother's coffin go out. First getting denied to be buried right next to grandfather. And then while they're moving away, arrows being shot at him. The narrations say there were thousands of arrows that were shot. Where they had to take his janazah back to the house, rewrap him, and then take him to Jannatul Baqi. That is Hussein. Right? After that, did he find peace at all? No, he goes to do a Hajj. And what does he say in his khutbah? I cannot allow, I know there are killers within these Muslims, and they're hungry for my blood. Not that they hate me, they're hungry for my blood. And I cannot allow this pure land to be distorted, to be destroyed by my blood, when my blood is spilled. So he leaves. While he's on his way to Karbala or to Kufa, he hears what? Assalamu alaikum ya Aba Abdullah. Hazrat Abbas asks him, who are you replying the salam to? And he says, come Abbas, look, this is when they're about to throw a Muslim off the building after tying his hands and legs. Then to see the 2 young children of Muslim being killed as well. Because he was the Imam at that time. Reading Masaib for Hussein is very tough. Right? Very tough. Imam Hussein, how many times do we see in Karbala the name Hussein was at the body of the martyr? Every single martyrdom in Maqtal that I've read, Imam Hussein was the first one there. He was there before Hur went to his own sons. He was there for John before his own master. He was there for his friends being killed. And this is why they say it's very hard to understand Hussein. So you can close your eyes and imagine, and if you cannot imagine Hussein, imagine you as a person. Imagine what you go through. If your best friends are killed in front of you, you have seen this happen to your mother, to your father, to your brother, and now you're in Karbala. And because you're the Imam, you have the divine knowledge what will happen after you. It starts with Ali Akbar, the first Shaheed, according to some narrations. How does Imam Hussein go to Ali Akbar? Ali Akbar, the one who looks like the Prophet, who stands as tall as the Prophet. When people wanted to see the Prophet, they used to go to Ali Akbar. How does Imam Hussein go? And what happens during that time? What is the enemy saying? Are you here to look for your son? Are you here to look for your son? Because before that they were conspiring amongst themselves. Kill Ali Akbar and Hussein will die its own death. So when Imam Hussein goes to Ali Akbar, how does he go? On his knees, saying what? Where are you, Ali Akbar? Where are you, Ali Akbar? Aina Ali Akbar? Aina Ali Akbar? And when he gets to Ali Akbar, he sees what? Now this is a son of his. Imagine you as a father. A son of his lying down there with a spear in his chest. And he's covering it saying, Baba, you cannot see my zakhm. You cannot see the injury that I have. Please, I beg you, go away. And as Imam Hussein has to go through more. He says what? Ya Ali, Baba, come and see. You lifted Khaybar, correct? Come and see how Hussein takes out this spear from his own son's chest. Bring back Ali Akbar. As I said, right, I'm reading Imam Hussein, so I'll take some time. I'll take 5 minutes. Then he has to do what? He has to go for every other sahaba of his, and then collecting Qasim, his brother's son. And I did not say he went to Qasim's body. I said he collected Qasim. Because horses trampled his body in such a way that he was in pieces. The words of the Maqtal are, Qasim was collected. His body was not lifted. He was collected. Ali Azadari, an arrow that is used to take down beasts, that's what took Ali Azadari down in the hands of his own father. A 6-month-old. Next time you hold a baby, just imagine how small a baby is. That's what took down Ali Azadari. And then in the end, when nobody was left, he went to Abbas's side. His arms were cut off. Arrow in the eyes of Abbas. And Abbas requests what? Do not take me back to the camps. And Imam Hussein has replied, brother, I'm collecting every single shaheed next to the tents. And he says, no, do not take me back, because I do not want Sakina to see my face. I do not want Sakina to see that I have not brought water back. And Imam Hussein takes the arrow out of the eye of Abbas. And now he's all alone. There was a reason I read all of these shahadats. The maqtals of all of them. Why? Because Imam Hussein went out fighting. You killed my Ali Akbar, look how I fight. You killed my Abbas, look how I fight as a brother. You killed Qasim, look how I fight as an uncle. Look at the fight of Hussein, look at the fight of the son of Ali. Until a voice came. Ya nafs al-mutmainna irja. Come back to your Lord. And that's when Imam Hussein puts his sword back in. And then what happens? The Maqtal talks about things that have happened to every shahada of Karbala happened to Imam Hussein. Spears were thrown at him. Arrows were shot at him. Stones were thrown at him. People who couldn't find anything, they were picking up garbage, they were picking up sand and throwing at Imam Hussein. And a time came where he could not stay on the horse on the Zuljanah, and he came down. But the riwayat is crazy at this point. When I read it, I could not understand. I had to read it again and again and again. The riwayat is crazy. It says Imam Hussein falling from Zuljanah did not fall on the ground. The riwayat says he was in the air. And then it goes in description, there were thousands of arrows that Imam Hussein had on his body, that he was resting on arrows and spears. Imagine a person coming down from a horse. It's such a big fall, yet you do not get to the ground. And then what happens? Imam Hussein knows Zainab is watching from the tents, but there's another lady watching from the tents, the 4-year-old Sakina. There are some riwayat that say Imam Hussein tells both of them, go back, you will not be able to bear what happens to me now. You will not be able to bear this. Shimr is closing in for the opportunity. Shimr has a blade which is not sharp. Imagine a non-sharp blade. So what does he do? He gets on the chest of Abu Abdullah. Zainab comes to a location where she's seeing Imam Hussein being murdered 60 feet away. Sakina is still on the gate of the tent, watching her father, shouting from there. Now Shimr is on the chest of Imam Hussein. You know what he does? He puts his knee on top of Hussein, holds his head by the hair, and starts stabbing his neck. He starts stabbing the neck of Imam Hussein because the blade was not sharp. And that's when he cuts the head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. When everybody had let go, the riwayat says, everybody from the heavens was watching, all the Aimma were watching, all the prophets were watching, one by one, every single one left, including Imam Ali alayhi salam had left, the prophet left. And Imam Hussein was looking up and trying to find one person, one lady who's here to collect your tears today. And Imam Hussein was looking for his mother, and he could not find her. Then a voice came from the back. Ya Hussein, I'm here for you. I'm not leaving your side. When your head gets cut, I am going to be the one carrying it. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Matam Hussein.